Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This time we're going to be doing a character review and discussion of the primary antagonist of the sequel trilogy, Kylo Ren. There is a lot to talk about with Kylo, or you may refer to him as Ben Solo. This dude carried the sequel trilogy. Like, in my honest opinion, I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the sequels. I don't think they were, the worst thing ever, but I have a lot of issues with some of the choices that were made in those films. But, I do think Kylo Ren's character was the best thing to come out of the sequel trilogy. Honestly, like, they could have done a lot more with him, which does lead to a little bit of my disappointment. But I was always intrigued from the time he was introduced of this idea of having the grandson of Vader, so Anakin Skywalker's grandson, who is obsessed with the idea of Vader. He's obsessed with the idea of Vader. He's obsessed with, being greater than Vader was and power. And, I think going into a little bit of his backstory with the corruption and how he was corrupted by Snoke or Palpatine, by form of controlling Snoke. His story does make a lot of sense and is something that feels in place in Star Wars. I do love the idea that he's so out of tune with his rage that he almost kind of shuts down his emotions to a point where it just comes out in angry bursts like a teenager. I thought it was enjoyable, and for a young, powerful dark side force user that isn't in full control of his power, I think it does make a lot of sense. I hated that we didn't get to see a lot of him as the supreme leader of the First Order, and him kind of reaching that peak point of being the top guy in charge of this basically empire. But we basically just kind of see him achieve that with the death of Snoke, and then he's immediately going to Palpatine, and once again he's knocked down to working below someone. I hated that, to be honest. But as far as Ben Solo goes, he's someone that was destined to be troubled by the past. I think when you have these and Star Wars is a family story, and when you have kind of this dark history of the family, not every generation is going to be able to avoid that, and I think from a young age, Ben Solo was always living in kind of the shadow of that dark legacy. Even though he has loving parents, Han and Leia were there for him, and he's born on the right side of history. That dark piece of the Skywalker bloodline is still in there, and dark entities like Palpatine are going to take advantage of that, and Kylo was kind of led to just following more of that and not following the fact that Vader was redeemed at the end, and his love for his son saved him. And the parallel you see with, Luke Skywalker saves his father, and Kylo Ren chooses to kill his father. He chooses to go further down the dark path. And that's an interesting parallel. And I think his character just kind of existed to not only give us a solid antagonist for the sequel trilogy, but to also give us someone to root for, because we do want to see him redeemed. And ultimately, at the end, he is redeemed, but it took a lot more for him to reach that point, because it wasn't a simple thing. It was him having to come to terms with the fact that his father did love him, his mother did love him, even Luke did love him, even though the miscommunication between him and Luke is what led Kylo to taking that first step towards fully embracing the dark side. So really sad that that he was killed off in The Rise of Skywalker. I really wish we could have seen a lot more of Kylo Ren on the light side, embracing that Ben Solo persona and kind of moving forward with that. But that was the story they wanted to tell. But I thought he was a decent character. I thought he was the best character to come out of the sequel trilogy, just because he was designed well. And even though there's things with his backstory and all that might not make a ton of sense if you really start to put all the pieces together. If you just take him for what he is in the films, I think he's a solid addition to the Star Wars universe. So, gonna give Kylo Ren an 8.7 out of 10. Like I said, I think when it's all said and done, he'll probably be my highest rated of the sequel characters. Because I do love the idea of what he was meant to represent. And, hopefully we do get to see more of him in some shape or form. But, knowing how his story ended, not too sure about that. So that's going to be all I got for you this time. I appreciate you watching. Hit that subscribe button. And as always, may the Force be with you. Now let's blow up that like button and go home.